I have a Hall of Famer joining me next. I'm excited. This is exhilarating for me at least. Let's get into it. George Karl, Hall of Fame head coach, joins Locked On Warriors next.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow Hall of Fame head coach and player. The man is basketball. He lives it. He breathes it from what I can tell. You're on Twitter, sir, at Coach Karl22. George Karl, former head coach of the Warriors, among many teams. How are you doing, sir? Thank you for gracing your presence today. I know you're a busy individual, and you made the Hall of Fame. That is a huge difference from the last time to this time you've been on this program. Describe your experience being a Hall of Famer, and how are you, sir?
Well, the Hall of Fame was, I don't know, maybe my, walking into the sunset moment. It was fantastic. My family was great. You don't get there with good people supporting you. I've had a good ride. I still love the game. And now I don't have to ever worry about win or lose. And I'm in the greatest basketball fraternity in the world, the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I was hoping.
And I get to hang out with a lot of guys I know and still be a kind of a prominent figure in the NBA alumni.
It is, in my humble opinion, you're in one of the most exclusive and I would personally, the Hall of Fame, it's just, there's only a select few who are in there. It is such an esoteric, exclusive club. Rick Barry was supposed to join us today. I apologize that he couldn't join you. I was hyping this up as having two Hall of Famers on the program. I'm so grateful for having one. Tell us about the day itself. I know I follow you on Twitter. I think, first of all, and please promote any other social media platforms and anything else you have going on. I know you also have a documentary we're going to talk about in a little bit, but tell us the emotions. Look, most of us common folk, we will never know what it's like to be a Hall of Famer. And you've got the orange jacket. What was the feeling like leading up to the moment, then the day of with the ceremony? Describe the emotions of all that experience leading up to the day of and then the day itself.
Well, I think the one thing you realize that over a career, you remember a lot of the wins, but you also remember probably more of the losses and the misery that goes on to being in the NBA. And when I got the call, I was very humbled by the realization that I've been accepted, kind of. I've been appreciated, kind of. All the work that my staff and I did, we thought we had fun. But we also, we never won a championship. So that lingers over your head. But I had a ball with the game of basketball, the different defenses, the different offenses, the innovation of building a culture for an NBA team. I'm kind of proud of being a part of the generation that the game of basketball blew up. People don't realize that in the early 80s, the game wasn't doing very well.
Right.
It was, it was struggling. And since then, whoever you want to give credit to, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, I give a lot of credit to the ABA days. But basketball now is probably the second most popular sport in the world.
Right.
And I know football is king in America, but throughout the world, I think basketball is probably second.
I agree. And the popularity just continues to grow. And that's a huge reason why we're hopefully going to get expansion teams in the NBA soon. I'm still bitter to this day that Seattle does not have a franchise, a team you led to the NBA finals. And it's egregious what happened there. I don't want to get too much into it because I'll get pissed myself. But yeah, it's the point is it's so popular. We're probably going to get 2 expansion teams. I'm advocating for 4 or even 6. I think the game would welcome that, given how much not only is it popular, but it's growing. But that's my opinion on that. And you brought up the ABA. Let's give some love to that early in the show, real fast. You've got a film that you're working on, and I'll let you explain this in detail. And we're going to talk about some crazy stuff in this show, especially a brawl you were a part of that not many people know about. I'm going to play the clip as well, and hopefully copyright will. Sorry, go ahead.
The ABA film is. Through doing a lot of podcasts, I ran back a lot, talking to a lot of ABA guys. And I just realized that the ABA story has never been told. I think the NBA, I don't know what you want to say, swiped it under the rug, didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to give ABA any love. And if you go back and study the ABA, I really think it was the beginning of the NBA becoming better. In 1 year, the NBA integrated the NBA. The merger integrated basketball.
Right.
They got 38 starters, 12 Hall of Fame players, and a couple of really good basketball teams in 1 year. And then, of course, they got Julius. And that's the reason the merger happened. And Julius is the executive producer of the documentary. And it's been, our partner is Amazon Prime. It's a first-class documentary. It's going to be 4 parts, and it goes through all the history of the ABA. And then kind of how the NBA today is a mirror of a little bit of how the game is played today in the NBA. Was played a lot like that in the ABA.
Interesting.
A 3-point shot. We had probably more blacks on our teams than whites. And we were athletic. We were fast. The little guards still could play. And a lot of part of today's game, I thought was a big part of the ABA. And we're hoping it comes out next spring. We're not sure exactly when Amazon's going to release it, but I'm excited about it. And, I've seen the end product, and I think it's extremely, for a basketball fan, it's a must-see basketball watch.
And you're absolutely right that there hasn't been a lot of coverage of the ABA. First of all, you're very synonymous with coaching. I don't know, I don't know if this is redundant or not, but you also played basketball and you played for the Spurs 5 years. Is that correct?
Exactly.
So you have a very personal connection to this. I believe your documentary also includes Rick Barry, who comes on this program, my dear friend, regularly when he played for the Oakland Oaks, the 1969 ABA champion. I honestly, like, the only thing I've seen that really has exposed the ABA was the movie Semi-Pro with Will Ferrell, but that wasn't even like an accurate story. It's a comedy. So I'm really excited for this, man. So next year is when we can hopefully expect this through Amazon?
Amazon's in control of all that.
Okay.
I know one of the times they're thinking about is at the All-Star break, which is in Indiana this year, to possibly maybe release it then. But I think the writer's strike has created a lot of, Amazon hasn't told us exactly when they're thinking about it yet.
Well, I promise you, sir, once we have a date and more information, I will promote the ever-living you-know-what out of it on this program. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for more of Hall of Fame head coach George Karl. Well, I'm going to play a clip of a moment in NBA history that not enough people are familiar with. Everyone knows about the melee at the Palace, Steven Jackson, Jermaine O'Neal, fisticuffs, fans. You were involved in something very similar when you were the head coach of the Golden State Warriors. We're going to play that clip next and discuss it. In addition to getting your thoughts, sir, on the defending world champion Denver Nuggets, a team you're very proud of, you used to coach yourself, and whether or not they're going to repeat as champions, or if you think the Golden State Warriors are in their class. We'll discuss all that and so much more. Coach, sit tight, sir, for just a second, if you don't mind. Will I give some love to a sponsor of this program, and that is Jace Medical. Look, all of you out there, you need medical kits in your home because you don't know when a natural disaster could happen. You don't know if a medical emergency could happen. You need those bandages. You need those gauzes. You need the Neosporin, whatever comes in your traditional medical kit. What Jace offers, in addition to all those necessities that you can get at your local drugstore, at your local grocery store, they're adding antibiotics to the mix. So every Jace case contains, more specifically, 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. They're continually working to expand their medication offerings, and you get connected with actual doctors. The Jace case is amazing. It's not easy to get actual antibiotics in your possession. But if you go to jacemedical.com right now and enter the code locked on at checkout, you will get a $20 discount on your order. Again, go check out jacemedical.com to get your own personal Jace case. And if you enter the promo code locked on, you get a $20 discount. That's locked on, LOCKEDON at Jace Medical. That's JASE medical.com.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Everydayers, join us tomorrow night for the post-game action following the final Warriors preseason game against the San Antonio Spurs. By the way, Coach, have you ever, I don't know if you watched the game last night when the Warriors played the Kings. Have you ever seen a more intense preseason game? What were your thoughts on that if you watched it?
I watched it this morning, and it was a hell of a fourth quarter. I liked it. I mean, I actually have been complaining that the exhibition season is just, it's embarrassing how we play.
Yes.
It's a little bit better than Summer League, but not a lot better in Summer League. And our stars don't play.
Right.
And what happens I don't like is nobody tries to win the game. The fourth quarter is playground fun. Your 18th man is playing. But last night, that was a hell of a game.
Incredible.
And you know, Steph was Steph. It was good to see. You know, banking in shots, falling on the ground, and then, of course, making the big shot when it counted. So I don't know how good Golden State's going to be. You probably know better than I. I haven't seen Denver play much. I've only watched them play one game in exhibition season. I always gave the media trouble because of once the season over, everybody makes all these trades and all these transactions, and they think they're going to win.
Uh-huh.
And I just call it summer talk. It's just summer talk. You know, it's like you know, you talk about girls in the summer more than winter. It doesn't show anything until the product goes on the court and you win some games.
Yep.
But, you know, Golden State's going to be good. Denver, I think they're going to be there. They got to prove to me that they're going to be good enough. They changed their bench. Their bench is going to be very young. And they got some really good, talented kids. But I liked their bench last year.
Yeah, that was.
Jeff Green and Bruce Brown were legit NBA starters.
Yes, sir.
Coming off your bench. And they're not going to have that early in this season. But they do have the best player in the game, and Jokic.
Yep. And Christian Brown, they're going to expect more from him. I watched some of his offseason workouts. That kid looks good, and I would expect great things in year two. I want to touch on those two teams more in just a moment. And again, that preseason game last night, I've never seen that level of intensity in my entire life in an exhibition game. That was absolutely incredible. Speaking of incredible, though, again, most people are not aware of this. I don't even remember how I discovered watching this, and I'd love to get your feedback immediately. This was in 1987. It was around this time, maybe a year or so prior to this, that I started really getting interested in the NBA. It first started with Magic and Bird, Julius Erving, aka Dr. J, who you're working with on that documentary you mentioned a moment ago. But then I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. The Warriors captivated me real fast. That's when I was first introduced to you, Sleepy Floyd. The Sleepy Floyd game against the Lakers that you were the head coach of will always live in infamy to me. That was what a game that was. But then what a game this was. And this was the first round of the 87 playoffs. And it was your team, a lower seed than the Utah Jazz. And I'm going to play this clip right now. This was the very end of the game. Your team was trailing by 3. And here's the inbound and the ensuing ruckus. Enjoy.
And I believe Griffith out there. 7 seconds to play. McDonald from midcourt throws to Floyd. Floyd smothered by Stockton. 5. Over to Ballard behind him. Stolen by Malone. Game is over. 2-1. Utah wins. And now Ballard and Malone get into it. Malone and Ballard get into it. And everybody off the court. We have a little bit of a fisticuff situation here. As Ballard threw the ball to Malone. As the game was already over. Malone threw his elbow back at Ballard as he walked off the court, and now we have an ugly scene. And the fans are up on the court, the police come out, and the frustration of the series and the tempers flare.
And Chris Washburn is still going out here, taking about 3 men, and now guarantee that's where the action is. He wants to fight.
Washburn is being restrained by Joe Carroll. Washburn wants Mark Eaton. And now Jack Deese, the alternate official, comes out, and the crowd boos the Warriors off the floor. But let me tell you, now George Karl is going at a fan. George Karl is going at a fan. George Karl is at a fan. And they're trying now. George knocks him over. We have a wild scene here. George Karl has lost it, and he has attacked the fan. I believe it to be a fan. I really can't tell you who it is. As the crowd is on the floor, and now they are escorting George off the floor. Floyd is in there with a security guard. Floyd and Teagle are being escorted off the floor.
It's a wild scene, Greg.
It
should not happen this way. It was too good a basketball game to end with this kind of fracas. I do not believe in him. I know it's
all right, let's stop it there. So, Coach, I've watched that probably 100 times. It never gets old. Tell us in your own words how the whole thing evolved and your thoughts.
Well, Greg Ballard and I think Karl Malone got into kind of a grabbing, pushing. Nothing was going to happen. And then Greg Ballard threw the ball at Malone, and both benches got together, and we started, like most NBA fights, pushing and shoving. And what happened to me was the fans swung at me. And that's I've never seen that in the video.
You don't.
But when I started running after that fan had hit me. And I don't know. I mean, what happened when I started running, Chris Mullin came with me. And Sleepy Floyd came with me. And all of a sudden we're having kind of an embarrassing moment. But it sure made my post-game talk really good. We're not 0-2. We were an underdog in the series, but we had played really well. And we would go home and win 2 games. Again, both games were really close, really good basketball games. And then in game 5, we came back to Utah and won 3 in a row in game 5. And we actually won that game fairly easy. So that was my first year at Golden State. It's the first time Golden State were in the playoffs for like 8 or 9 years.
Right.
And then, of course, we go on to Sleepy Floyd, getting, 29 points in the fourth quarter?
Yes, sir.
Against the Lakers in round 2 before we would lose to the Lakers.
And that game, by the way, that Sleepy Floyd game, I've had Sleepy on this show a couple times. Again, he still holds the record. Most points in a quarter in playoff in NBA history in the postseason. That 29 still stands. But that clip was incredible. And I just wanted Dub Nation to see that, because I don't feel like enough of Dub Nation is even aware that you coached this team for 2 years, right?
Right.
And the whole circumstances of you leaving were kind of shady, right? Was the owner that was kind of just being?
I think the owner all along wanted Don Nelson as his coach. Nelly didn't want to coach anymore. But I think what happened was the owner made it financially irresponsible not to coach. And, and we weren't having a very good year. That was the year we traded Joe Barricaro for Ralph Sampson, even though that didn't work out. I think Chris Mullin went into rehab. Larry Smith got hurt. We just had a tough year.
Yeah. I don't know how you could be faulted for that. And again, you ended up having a Hall of Fame coaching career, so you can deduce from that what you want about the Warriors' decision there. Regardless, that's a phenomenal moment in NBA history. And again, folks, go Google it for yourself. All you got to do is type in Warriors Jazz Brawl in your search engine, and it'll come right up. So I appreciate you sitting there with me to view that and discuss that. In just a moment, I want to get your thoughts on in a little more detail on the upcoming season, because you're right. The Denver Nuggets, their bench I don't think is as deep as last year. They went slightly younger. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that, and whether or not you think the Warriors are back in contender status after having a bit of an off year. So we'll get to that in just a minute. Got to give some love real fast to FanDuel as we slowly wrap up the show here. The official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. Again, $200 in bonus bets, good as cash. If you place a $5 bet, win or lose, that's a hell of a deal. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. There's spreads, player props, OUs, you name it. You can bet on it with FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And one final segment here, wrapping things up with Hall of Fame head coach George Karl. You can follow him on Twitter at Coach Karl22. Anything else social media wise that you want to promote? Are you on Threads yet, like I am? Where are you these days on social media?
Oh, I think I hang out on Twitter 90% of the time.
Gotcha.
They want me to try and do other things, but I'm too old for the computer. I'm happy I got on with you without having to call somebody.
Yeah, I wish Rick joined us as well. I apologize for that. I was hyping this up as 2 Hall of Famers on the program, but I am grateful for just one, sir. What are your thoughts on the Nuggets? And then we'll finish up with your form. These are both your former teams. But let's start with the Nuggets, and then we'll finish up with the Warriors. Again, Bruce Brown, a player that, in my opinion, was a massively huge difference in terms of adding depth to that Nuggets team. You called him a starter. I agree. Talent-wise, he's at that level. And they didn't bring him back. They also didn't bring back Green, as you mentioned, a very valuable veteran. I think they're going to rely more on Christian Brown. What are your thoughts on this Nuggets team? I know you mentioned they had the best player in the NBA, Nikola Jokic. I don't know if members of Dub Nation would agree with that, but I understand why you say it. What are your thoughts? Are they going to repeat as world champions? Does another team catch your eye? Your thoughts on the Nuggets, sir?
I love the Nuggets. So I love them because of Jokic. I mean, there's a lot like Steph. He makes his team better.
Yes.
And it's not about him all the time. It's about the team. And Steph does the same thing. I worry about repeating in today's age. It doesn't seem like it gets done very often in any sport. It just seems with all the free agents and player movement and player power, it's just there's a lot of negative energy around the game of basketball. I thought last year Golden State with the Draymond Green had a lot of negative energy.
True.
You had the John Morant in Memphis, a lot of negative energy.
Yeah.
You had the Kyrie Irving in Dallas, a lot of negative energy. And I was told a long time ago when I had dinner one day with Bill Walsh, the ex-football coach.
Yes.
And he said in the NFL that 75% of the teams in the NFL will destroy themselves from within by negative energy. And I've always remembered that. And it's always stuck with me. And Denver didn't have a lot of negative energy. They had a 7-man rotation. They played some of their other guys when they really had to. But basically they had a 7-man rotation that they relied upon a great deal. And they've changed that now. And I don't know. I just don't know if they're mentally strong enough. But I think they're the best team. I think today they are the most talented basketball team in the NBA. Now, that doesn't matter. What matters is who's the best team in May and in June. And that's what I love about the NBA. The picture is going to be really good. We just don't know who's going to be in the picture.
Yes, sir. And for members of Dub Nation watching this, again, we both watched that game last night against the Kings. It is just the preseason. But in my opinion, this Warriors team is night and day from a year ago. You mentioned negative energy. First of all, I think, in my opinion as well, Bill Walsh is the greatest coach to have ever led a professional football team. I know people say Bill Belichick, he has doubled the Super Bowls, but if you grew up watching Bill Walsh, I mean, you knew him personally. You understood how deep of a human being he was, highly intelligent. So if that's what he's saying, I feel like every word of Bill Walsh is something you take to heart. So that's just my take on that. But this Warriors team has depth. And again, the negative energy, I don't think is there this year that it was last year. For members of Deb Nation watching this, what are your thoughts on the Warriors this year?
I think they're going to be great, good to great. How great is always going to be determined in May and June.
Right.
I'm one of the few that probably like the Chris Paul pickup. I think Chris is a hell of a player. And we don't know what role he's going to play, but I promise you, he'll figure it out with Steve Kerr. They'll figure out a really good role for him. The other team I really like, though, is Sacramento.
Agreed.
I think Sacramento, I can't even remember the kid's name, the forward from Iowa.
Oh, Keegan Murray?
That kid's going to have a hell of a year.
Yeah.
He's going to really have a good year. And the guy they got from Europe.
I forgot his name, but I know exactly the 3-point shooter. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're a better 3-point shooting team than Golden State, but they're not afraid to win the game with the 3-ball.
Yeah.
And Fox has turned into a dynamite player. I love Sabonis. He's a little bit like Jokic. You know, he's not as good as Jokic, but he's pretty damn good. So I would say if I had Golden State and Sacramento right now, those would be a little bit ahead of Golden State.
Okay. That's it. Yeah, I've been saying on this show, don't be surprised if it ends up being, and no disrespect to your Nuggets, sir, but if we see the Western Conference Finals featuring the Kings and the Warriors, don't be surprised. I mean, it wouldn't. What are your thoughts? You know, you talked about Keegan Murray. I feel like the Warriors' hopes are going to rely a lot on Jonathan Kuminga, who is leading the preseason in scoring. Take that for what it's worth. But what are your thoughts on him? Do you feel like he's ready to take that next step?
I think he's going to, like rookies usually play a good game, play a bad game, play a good game, play a bad game. I think the young kid is ready to play 2 good games to every 1 bad game.
All right.
And maybe by the end of the year, 3 good games to every bad
Right.
game. But just remember, young players don't win championships. I know the fans love young guys. They get hyped and fired up. But there's just not a lot of young players playing on an NBA court in June.
Right. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. I mean, your opinion carries so much more weight than mine. But like, I see Kuminga possibly having an impact similar to another young player named Kawhi Leonard back in 2014, who wasn't the star of the show, but he was a pivotal role player. I feel like if Kuminga can emerge to that level, the Warriors have a shot. Am I talking crazy?
That's a good comparison. Right now, he doesn't have a great offensive game. He's an athlete, playing really good defense, plays well, plays hard, learning the game. And he has a great mentor, and their coaching staff is great. And you got a guy like Kerr and Draymond who know how to teach championship pedigree. And all that went out the window last year with what happened with the fight. I think I think they feel good about the cloud being removed.
Yeah.
And they can move forward.
Absolutely. Anything you'd like to promote, sir? I can't thank you enough for giving me 30 minutes plus minutes of your time. Anything else you'd like to promote before we call it a day? And thank you in advance for coming on, sir. I'm sorry for Rick not making it, but thank you.
Well, I love the ABA, NBA documentary. As I said, if you're a basketball fan, you'll love watching this game. So it has a lot about today's game, but it has a lot about the history of what was going on in the NBA in the 70s and the 80s.
Beautiful. And again, the moment we have more specific information about the release of that, I will promote it. Hope to have you back maybe when that time comes. We could promote it together if that's okay with you, Coach.
I'd love to do it. That'd be fine.
Thank you, sir. And congrats on the Hall of Fame. You've earned that orange jacket. Thank you for your time, sir, and have a great rest of the day. Congrats on your family too. I mean, that's just growing. I mean, how many grandchildren do you have now?
I have 4 grandkids.
Congrats.
And it's great being a grandpa, and it's also great. My son's into coaching, and my son-in-law is a girls coach at Evergreen College in Olympia, Washington.
There you go. Good
so
stuff.
Basketball is in my life almost every day of the year.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, George Karl. You can follow him on Twitter at Coach Karl22. And the moment that documentary has a release date, we're going to promote the you know what out of it on this program. Coach, thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back at this soon. Take care.